So, hello everyone. We're going to get started here. Just inviting a couple more people. And I'm going to leave a comment here to say refresh your screen. Let me just go over here. Refresh the page. I am live now, and it will be just the video and text box. Cool. Embed correctly. So I will post links here in the chat box. Okay, yeah, so please make sure to refresh the page and click play button. I'm going to make sure the audio is working. Chat box. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so. Yeah, okay, so I can hear myself there. And so, hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I know there are a lot of you have been sending me questions on Facebook and different on Instagram, on Facebook, and emails. I think a lot of you have been very curious to know about me as a teacher and also about the results that I got on the test. So we're just seeing a couple more people joining us, and feel free below the chat box here. There's a link where you can share this video, this lesson with your friends if you know that they are also preparing for the exam. And also please say hi in the chat box that is below this video. Let me know where you are from, and let me know about your target score, so I can get a feel for where you're joining us from, and what you're aiming to get for your score, and also perhaps which section you are struggling with the most. So, so for those of you who saw my post the other day, I was able to obtain a 120 out of 120, which completely caught me by surprise. I mean, I was aiming to get a higher score than I had the previous time that I took the test, and this was a year ago that I had taken the exam for the first time, and that time I got a 117. That was 28 in the reading section, a 29 in the listening section, 30 in speaking, and 30 in writing. At the time, most of my students had wanted to focus on the speaking and writing sections with me, so I've been helping lots and lots of students mainly on those two sections, and a lot of them were telling me I can work on the reading and listening by myself. So I said, okay, that is fine. We will mainly focus on those two sections of speaking and writing. And hello, Preet from India. So, and struggling with the reading section. Okay, yeah, thank you for saying hi in the chat here. And yeah, let me know if you have any previous results, and what when you are planning to take the test the next time, and what your target score is for that. So I recognized when I took the test last year that I needed to keep reinforcing my reading strategies. So even as a native speaker, even though I have a university diploma, the reading section it can be a difficult section, and it does require becoming more and more familiar with the types of questions that are on there and developing strategies for each one of those questions. So we're going to go little by little through like each of those sections on the test. And I'm going to share with you some of the advice, some of the basics that I would recommend that you get used to when preparing for your exam. And keep letting me know in the chat box below the video. That's on my website. So if you are sending messages on YouTube, let me go make sure that if there are any messages over there on YouTube with this as well. I don't want to ignore any questions that might be over there, but I would encourage you to go over onto the website. That way I can see the questions below the video. But I'm just going to go check and see if there's any comments so far over here. I don't see any comments over there on the just on the YouTube chat, but I will keep an eye on that. So I see that most of you are now leaving comments here below the video on my website. Okay, great. So we have yes, Lana. Okay. Yeah, we spoke earlier today. So great to have you join us here. Himal from Los Angeles, difficulties with speaking and writing. Okay. Ahmed in Egypt. Yeah, any advice? Okay, reading 22, listening 21, speaking 26. Okay. And writing 24, and planning to take the exam on March 24th. Ahmed, what is your target score here? If those are that's a total. Okay, yeah, so 22, 21. Oh, this sounds very similar to the pharmacy. Ahmed, are you also preparing for a pharmacy license? Because that looks very similar to what I received from Lana. Okay, yeah, so and let me know any previous results that you've obtained so far. Okay, so yeah, basically the pharmacy. Okay, great. Yeah. And for what was it? With the reading section, can you specify a little bit more about which types of questions you're struggling with? Okay, so I would recommend, if you haven't done this so far, I would consult some of the free resources that you can find on the ETS website for the quick prep. So I'll post the link there. So a lot of students, they say that they need help finding resources. So I will post this link here. So a good place to start with free resources is the ets.org /TOEFL/IBT/prepare/quick prep. The first two PDFs that you'll find there are just text. They don't include any audio files, but then the PDF number 3, volume 3, and volume 4, those do have MP3 files that go with them, so you can work on some of the listening files. That's a whole set for those PDFs, and that include exercises for the reading section, exercises for a few of the speaking questions, and they give also the writing prompts as well. Okay, Ahmed, the summary question. Okay, the purpose question. Yes. Okay. Okay. What else on here? Yeah. In addition to this quick prep, because those are just like the PDFs and with the audio files, there are also there's another set like a PDF that you can find on this link, which is the this other more resources as well, free resources. If you scroll down on this link, they include, for example, there's a what do they call it? They call it the sampler, I think. Yeah, they have a sampler, again, that is just text-based. If you scroll down on that link that I just put there for the free test preparation resources that has the interactive sampler. There's at least a reading sample. I think the listening, it includes transcripts. And then below that, you have also a TOEFL IBT test questions. There's the quick prep, which I just mentioned there with the PDFs. There is also some software, this interactive sampler. It's the interactive sampler that is a software that you can download on a PC. It unfortunately doesn't work on the Mac, but it does give you an idea of what the test format looks like on the computer. It isn't 100% complete there, but okay. And what is this? Never get trial for TOEFL before. Never get trial. Could you expand? Could you comment on that, HML? What you mean by that? Never get the trial. You mean through the website, the ETS themselves, of taking their computer-based scoring? Yeah, please clarify that. What you mean by that comment? Okay. So if we take exam. Okay, I'm not sure what you're still referring to there, but okay. So if we go back to a couple of these questions. So yeah, it's a good idea in general to become familiar with the types of questions that you have there in general. So we'll go through a couple of these here. So if let's take one of the quick prep texts, just so we can get an idea. If you're just getting started with the test, this will be a little bit of an overview of what we can look at for the reading section. So I'm going to go over here to the quick prep. I'm going to look at volume 1, and I'm going to take a look at this PDF. And I will try sharing my screen as well in a second, but I'm going to recommend that you check over here. So we're briefly going to take a look at this reading passage and questions. So I'll put that here. So we're going to look at the quick prep, this volume 1 there, and if you're familiar with it, this reading section includes a text about this one talks about Teotihuacan. I'm located in Mexico City, so it's a very relevant one here. So I'm going to share this on my screen in 1 second here. And I'm also going to show you how you can use these quick prep PDFs to try to get an experience that could be similar to the way it might be on the day of the test. It won't be completely that way, but you can at least try to use material this way. Okay. Okay. And I'm still also looking over here at the questions. Okay. And hello, Diva. Preparing for dental school, need 26 on speaking. Don't really get any ideas what to speak for. Couldn't think of ideas. And okay, for the brainstorming. Okay, Maha I took the test 6 times, still struggling with the speaking. Okay, we will get to the speaking section as well with advice. Okay, and Ahmed, listening section, I do well, but I feel as if my note-taking is very inefficient. Is it possible to help on the note-taking as well as the writing questions? Okay, so note-taking skills as well, and working with Kaplan and Cambridge and the TPOs. Yeah, okay. So a lot of you are familiar, but just for those of you who are not familiar, just want to go through here, and I'm going to, okay. So I'm going to do a share screen here. Okay, so just 1 second. Let me go over here and share my screen. Okay, So let me go back there. Sorry, you get the tunnel vision there. Okay, so let me just double check over here if you will be able to see my screen. If you can see my screen, let me leave a comment there. Yeah, it looks like you can see my screen and it's going kind of that infinite view there. Okay, now you have the two PDFs. Okay, so what I would do is if that link that I just gave you there for the quick prep, if you open that in two tabs and side-by-side tabs, this isn't the complete experience what you would have on the day of the test, but I would recommend that you do this having two tabs, and what you end up here is that you get you end up having the reading on the right hand side that you can scroll up and down right here. Do this, and then on the left hand side of the screen, then you can scroll up and down with questions. Obviously, on the day of the test, you don't see all of these questions one after the other like this. You would click and then move on to the next section. So yeah, thank you those who are saying yes that you can see my screen here. So just to get, for those of you who are not completely familiar, but I do see that a lot of you are familiar with the test and you have taken it before. So I'll try to be brief with this, but just to bring other people up to speed who are discovering the test for the first time, please humor me for a few minutes and then I'll get more into other more tips and advice here. So on the day of the test, you're going to have 3 passages or 4. I had 4 last week when I took the test, but they're basically going to be about 5-6 paragraphs, like you can see here. And you'll have that on the right-hand side of your screen. And the timer will be up at the top of the screen on the right-hand side. And it's going to be a timer that's going to be for the entire reading section. It's not going to be per passage itself. So, which means more or less you have about 20 minutes per reading, but you are in charge of organizing your time and pacing yourself so that you want to aim for maybe finishing this text and going through the questions maybe in 18 minutes. Don't try to take the entire 20 minutes, because I would recommend that by the time you get to the end of this section, when you've done all 3 passages or all 4 passages, allow yourself to have like maybe 3 or 4 minutes to go back and review all of your answers, at least click through them. And what I noticed this last time, this time when I took the test, is that by giving myself those 3-4 extra minutes at the end of the reading section and being able to click on the review and then checking my work, I started to get a better feel for like the bigger picture with a lot of these questions and seeing like, oh, that sounds right. Maybe when I'm in the middle of a specific question itself, I might start getting like a bit of a headache and getting lost in these details. But when you start to see all of these questions as a group and kind of clicking through them one by one, things start to click a little bit more. You start to recognize kind of how ETS formulates correct answers and wrong answers and how something could be misleading or tricky. So basically, as you're going through the reading section, don't try to occupy the entire 20 minutes. Try to give yourself at least maybe 2 or 3 minutes before the end of that 20 minutes, but before you move on to the next passage. And certainly do not leave any questions blank. You will not be penalized for wrong answers. So, okay, so this is an example of a passage we have here. This is probably about 700 words. It's in 5-6 paragraphs. And as you can see, a couple of these words are highlighted. For example, massive, pinpoint, ingenuity, predominant. So we have about 4 or 5. We have like 4 vocabulary questions that are on here. And the first question is starting out here with massive. So that's a vocabulary question. And we can see that starting with question 3, question 4 as well. and then getting down to question 8. So these, again, are vocabulary questions. You're not going to get too many context clues based on the reading section. So like massive, either you perhaps know that word or you don't. There's not going to be a lot of details in there. So I would suggest that there's lots of resources online where you can see vocabulary lists. I would also recommend that you learn vocabulary in context, not necessarily just as separate vocabulary words and just a definition. I think to work on your reading skills, you also need to see some of these words being used and to understand in which context they're being used. What else on here? I mean, there are word lists that you can find online with short definitions, but I would recommend that you work on reading them and discovering them through reading. Next on here, another type of question we have is this exception question. So this is another way that it could be phrased is a like not all of this information was included in that paragraph, but not this one. So the strategy. Oh, hi, Irina. Thank you. Thank you very much for your message and sharing some tips and results. Okay, got the same results. 85. At least 92. Okay. Yes, ideas to improve on it. Okay, thank you for that comment there. Yeah, I'll be happy to continue sharing more advice here. So, so with this particular question, number 2, this is an exception question. What you need to do is quickly start to recognize that this information that is here as an answer choice might contain some synonyms. It might be rephrased. It might not be the exact wording that is in the paragraph. So this one, a regularly arranged like streets, that's referring to over here where it talks about a regular grid pattern of streets and buildings. So you can see how there is the word regular, but in the text they're using it as an adjective, a regular grid pattern, and over here they're using it as an answer, they're using it as an adverb. So I would recommend that you get familiar and used to word form and part of speech in terms of nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. Learn vocabulary words in word families. That will also help you with your writing skills and with your speaking skills. They want to see that you are flexible with your speaking and your writing, and also with your reading skills, that you can recognize how a word is related and it means the same thing, and it could be rephrased slightly differently but still have a similar meaning. So definitely learn words with their part of speech and understand how they can be adapted to those different parts of speech. Now, also be sensitive to small details. So we'll keep going through here, but we have many manufacturing workshops. So many, this is also referring to a large number of industrial workshops. Industrial and manufacturing, again, this is related. Apartment complexes, that is also repeated, exactly that wording, apartment complexes. So we have those 3 details in here. So those are the things that are there. So obviously the answer choice is B, but I really want you to also double check why is B wrong. So in this case, this word is centers, and it's also saying several centers. Over here we have an, which is singular, and it's also center. So it's one center, not several centers. So they're giving you 2 pieces of details here. So they're giving an as a singular. They're also using the word in the singular form. And over here on the answer choices, I have several and I also have this in the plural. So there's two little details there that help me see that this is a wrong choice. But so be sensitive to those little tiny details, which could be singular, plural. It could be, what else could it be? There are sometimes the scope. Maybe this is local or regional, or there could be little differences on that. But what I would try to do is quickly go through this and do process of elimination. Try to find the first one. Is it in there? Yes. Okay, next one. Is it in there? Well, it's in there, but there's a little detail that's different. Okay, that's probably, I'm going to hold my thumb on that. That's probably the answer. But I'll keep going. And I have, okay, workshops. Yeah, workshops it's in there. Complexes. Yes, it's in there. Okay. And then go back to this one where I said like, that might be a little off. So that's my answer, is this one. So this is an exception question. Again, we have a vocabulary question, again, a vocabulary question. So as I said here, number 5, this is not. This is very similar to the exception question. So we'll do this one more time. We'll go through and try to find these details. So making sure you're understanding this is, okay, this main factor in the development. So what was not mentioned? So I'm going to paragraph 2. Okay, the presence of obsidian. So I'm looking for obsidian. And where is it? And trying to look at that, and I don't see the word obsidian. It's weird. Okay, I'm going to wait for that one. Potential for extensive irrigation. So I'm looking here for the word irrigation. Oh, there's the word obsidian. It was on the right-hand side of the page. So obsidian resources in the TOEFL. Yeah, there it was. That was A. Then irrigation. I'm looking for irrigation. Okay, it's over here on the left-hand side. The valleys, potential for extensive irrigation. So that's B. A long period of volcanic inactivity. So I'm looking for volcanic as a keyword. And the volcanic eruptions of last millennium. But they're using the word inactivity. That means there was no activity. I'm going to think that's the choice. And then I'm going to say, okay, Tehuacan's location on a natural trade route, looking for the word trade route. And yes, natural trade route. So yeah, so the answer choice here is this choice C. Yes, and thank you there, checking for those things. So yeah, sometimes it is kind of like a word search. You're looking for where this is in the paragraph. Sometimes it is on the end of the line. Sometimes it's at the beginning of the line. So if you're jumping in the middle of this paragraph, you need to also double check on the sides as well. So here, this little trick on inactivity, we have this prefix. So make sure that you are also learning with your vocabulary, prefixes and suffixes. So prefixes are usually things like in, add, im. So make sure if you're learning synonyms and antonyms with your vocabulary words, especially like adjectives, try to understand how those could be added to a vocabulary word and make it the opposite, or make it a little bit more specific. So those little details, they can make the difference when it comes to the reading section and determining if an answer is right or wrong there. So okay, now we're getting to an inference question. So we have this: which of the following can be inferred from paragraphs 2 and 3 about volcanic eruptions? So I will go over here to 2 and 3. Now, in inference question, it's kind of like they'll give you a few clues, but they won't say something directly. So if they say something is not big, not fast, and not heavy, then you could start to say, oh, well, this thing is, well, it's not big, okay, it's small, it's not fast, okay, it's slow, it's not heavy, okay, it's light. So you start to get an idea of some of those little characteristics and how they relate. So here we're looking at volcanic eruptions, and we have, okay, they were more frequent than historians once thought. Let me see if there's anything about historians. I don't see anything about historians. So I'm going to skip that one. They may have done more damage to Teotihuacan than to neighboring centers. So I'm going to have to look at these ones. Okay, damage. I'm going to see the word seriously affected by a volcanic eruption, but that's not Teotihuacan. That's another place called Cuicuilco. That's two separate places. And how here this is eliminated as a potential rival. So no, it's not this one because the damage was to a different place. They increased the need for extensive irrigation. I don't see talk about irrigation here. But what I do recognize here is that it says it may have played a major role in the rise of Teotihuacan. So what this is saying here, that because this other city was eliminated, it says that Teotihuacan did arise. So I can see how the volcanic eruptions may have played a role, may have had some involvement in how this city became. So it says at least circumstantially implicated. Those are a few academic words. So circumstance, this is maybe a situation. Implicated, this could be involved, and that could be rephrased as they may have played a major role. That's another way to rephrase that here. So this choice would be C. Again, we have another inference question, and this is looking at what happened to Cuicuilco. So here they're saying it was around this time, the largest of these centers, Cuicuilco, was seriously affected and much of its agricultural land covered by lava. So it was the largest, and then it was eliminated, and it's covered by lava. So my choices are here. It was a fairly small city. No, it was the largest. It was located outside of Mexico, of the Valley of Mexico. No, because it says before here coexisted in and near the valley. So it was in the valley. It emerged rapidly. No, it was eliminated. So it didn't emerge. But its economy relied heavily on agriculture. Yes, they talk about its agricultural land. So if the land was destroyed and it was eliminated, it means that they depended on like plants and crops. So that's the way I'm trying to interpret this question of inference. So I can see, it doesn't tell me specifically that they depended on this agriculture, but they use agricultural land, and then that was probably part of their economy on there. Okay. Now, so we've looked at an exception question or a not question. We've looked at vocabulary, inference questions. There is also a little bit here of this reference, kind of what does this refer to? So this competitive edge over its neighbor. And that would probably be around here. That is also highlighted in paragraph 4. You can see that. So I see it seems likely that Teotihuacan's natural resources I'm going to skip over what's here with the along with the city's elite capital gave the city a competitive edge over its neighbors. So natural resources is what I'm looking for here. And it says the valley, like many other places in Mexico, Mexican and Guatemalan highlands, was rich in obsidian. So I think that's the natural resource they were referring to. And I'm going to look over here and it says, okay, a well-exploited and readily available commodity. I think that's referring to the obsidian that they could sell. So it says the presence of a highly stable elite class. Well, at the first sentence it says, along with the city's elite ability to recognize their potential. It's not that they just had elite, it's that the elite could have some foresight or they knew what to do with things. It's not until later in this paragraph that they talk about the Olmecs. So that's after this sentence. And it says scarce natural resources. No, this was, it looks like it was abundant because it has the word rich. So again, that's an opposite here. So antonyms can also be one way to get an error or a mistake in the reading. But this one, a well-exploited, so that means the elite knew how to use it because of the word potential, to recognize their potential. And we have readily available, so that's this rich, it's not scarce. So those are one or two little details that I would be looking for in here. Okay, next we have this kind of factual question, this according to, and what we're looking at here is trying to find what they say about a few keywords. So it says recent research on obsidian tools found at obsidian sites shown. I'm going to try to look for those exact words. They're probably not going to use synonyms in that question. They want me to go find that. They want that to be clear. So I'm going to go look for that in paragraph 4. And I say, okay, recent research. And I have this sentence says, moreover, recent research on obsidian tools found at Olmec sites has shown. So there I have basically the exact phrase. I know what I'm looking for. So now I'm looking at that sentence. Recent research on obsidian tools found at Olmec sites has shown that some of the obsidian obtained by the Olmecs originated near Teotihuacan. So this is originated near Teotihuacan. So I'm going to look over here and try to find something that talks about origins or location. Obsidian's value was understood only when Teotihuacan became an important city. No. The residents were sophisticated tool makers. No. The residents traded as early as 400 BC. That's confusing me because that's like a sentence before what I'm looking for. And then some of the obsidian used by the Olmecs came from the area around. So yeah, origin came from the area around Teotihuacan. So there's my answer for the word originate. And I'm trying to eliminate these other 3 wrong choices. Okay, and a question here. Obtained 19 in speaking, but some stammering. Okay, yeah, we'll get to the speaking section in just a little bit. I just want to show you a little bit some of the reading strategies and what to be aware of here. Okay, so this according to, you're going to be looking for these keywords, like basically this whole entire phrase, and try to go look at that, find that in the sentence, and see what details they provide there. If some of this information is like way above it, that could be that could be there to trick you. So this thing about the Olmecs as early as 400 BC, that's there to trick you because they put this information before this part about the recent research. Okay. Next, you have something here of like select 2 choices about what was mentioned. So make sure you don't like neglect, not like you need to put both of these answers. So I'm going to look at paragraph 5. and I'm going to have two choices mentioned: features of Teotihuacan that may have attracted immigrants. Okay, so I'm going to look up here. So such success may have attracted immigrants to Teotihuacan. So I have, okay, trade gave the elite residents of Teotihuacan access to a wide variety of exotic goods, relatively prosperous life, such success. So their trading could have attracted immigrants. In addition, Teotihuacan's elite may have consciously attempted to attract new inhabitants. Okay, it is also probable Teotihuacan may have achieved some religious significance, and its shrine or shrines may have served as an additional population magnet. Finally, the growing population was probably fed by increasing the number and size of irrigated fields. So I would say it's something related to religion and something related to the trade. So I'm going to look in here. Well, the trade and that they're successful, the prosperity, yes. It doesn't exactly talk about plenty of housing. It doesn't talk about that. Opportunities for well-paid agricultural employment. Well, it doesn't exactly say that they were well paid. And then it says the presence of one or more religious shrines. So I have that religious element, and I have the prosperity. So I would choose A, and I would choose D. Also, be careful when you're looking at these answer choices and seeing that if there's something that's slightly off, it's probably there to trick you. So, for example, here, this yes, there may have been agricultural employment. No, actually, it doesn't quite say this about the work itself. So be careful with that. I mean, yes, it talks about the irrigated fields, but it doesn't necessarily say that there was agricultural employment there or that it was either well paid. So they don't talk about necessarily that there was a lot of money for that. It says that the elite probably received money, but it doesn't necessarily say that the employees or the people working in the field had that. So be careful if you jump to conclusions. Try to be very strict with what you see in the text. Double check it on there. Now, this is getting to a purpose question, number 12. In paragraph 6, the author discusses the thriving of student operation in order to. So it's really important with these types of questions that you get familiar with these types of verbs. Explain, give an example, illustrate, and understand the differences between those types of verbs, and go through a lot of these practice tests and look at those verbs that they bring up. I think it's real important that you start to understand the differences between those verbs and how they can be a little different. So they talk about the thriving obsidian operation, which is highlighted here. Would necessitate more miners, additional manufacturers, obsidian tools, and additional traders to carry the goods to new markets. All this led to increased wealth, which in turn would attract more immigrants. And the growing power of the elite, control the economy, would give them the means to physically coerce people to move. So it looks like there was kind of a spiral or kind of a cycle, a circle of more work, more people working, more tools, more trade, more markets, more wealth. So it just keeps like more. So yeah, I'm looking at here, illustrate how several factors, so the workers, the tools, the traders, and the wealth. So I said that I'd probably say there are several factors that come together and to make this a powerful and wealthy city. So I would say how this is choice C. It doesn't necessarily talk about that there was little time to develop. It doesn't say that manufacturing was the main interest or the main industry. because it says there was trade, there was mining, irrigation, the fields, religious tourism. So it wasn't just one. This is just one example. It wasn't the main one. And then how a successful industry can be a source of wealth and a source of conflict. It doesn't talk about conflict in this paragraph. It talks about it as a source of wealth. So this little detail of adding this source of conflict, this kind of erodes that answer. Like, it's almost correct how a successful industry can be a source of wealth, and then it becomes a problem with that extra detail there. And I say, oh, okay, because of that little problem, I'm going to eliminate this answer. So I try to identify what could be the right answer, and also eliminate and try to understand how to eliminate the wrong choices. So this second time around, when I was going through the test, the reading section, I was really being cautious with my answer choices to see that, okay, I found the answer and I am certain that these other choices are wrong. So I could look in the text and see, okay, that's wrong because of this. Sometimes it's a little bit of a gut reaction and see just the wording of that was, oh, that's misleading. Oh, that's trying to trick me. So I can start to recognize those little tricks and the wordings. And in combination, usually I can eliminate maybe one or two wrong answers rather quickly. And sometimes it gets down to maybe two choices and it gets like 50%, kind of like I'm flipping a coin to understand which one it was. Even still, there was at least one or two questions on the test this time where I hesitated a little bit. It was usually more in the summary question. We'll get to that in a second. But I just want to kind of go through some of these other questions that you might have on here. So this next type of question that you have here, this is a sentence insertion. So we have this sentence that's in there, and we want to add it to the paragraph. We have four choices, A, B, C, and D. The way it looks on the test, you'll click on the square, and then the sentence will be inserted, and you'll see how that sentence looks with the sentence before it, the sentence after it. There's also a possibility that this sentence insertion will not just be in the middle of a paragraph. It could be at the end of one paragraph and at the start of another one. So you might have it at like a break point between two paragraphs. It might not just be one complete paragraph. And start to look for little context clues. So we have things here like in fact. And then we have things about artifacts and pottery. And we have sites as far away. And then we have this list of all of these places. So those look like examples of something that might have been stated just beforehand. So I'm going to try to find something that talked about artifacts and pottery. Okay, in here, it had 2,000 apartments. So this is going back to like the first paragraph. Clearly much planning involved in expansion. Again, it's talking about the city. It's not talking about artifacts. Moreover, the city had economic and perhaps religious contacts with most parts of Mesoamerica. In fact, okay, yeah, this looks like in fact is highlighting this contact, and it talks about Mesoamerica, and this is giving me more details. So generally speaking, on the TOEFL, we're going to have maybe a general statement and then followed up with more specifics. So I would say this answer choice D is a good selection for this statement. So we took a general detail here, Mesoamerica, and then we back it up with specific places. And we also have this little detail, in fact, as like a going a step further with that information. And then now getting in here to the summary question, which is on here. Okay, so the summary question, what you're going to have here is we have a topic sentence. So Teotihuacan was highly developed city in Mesoamerica that reached its peak. And then also recognize that on the test, you're not going to have this side by side anymore. This is now going to become a full screen. You're going to have just this. And if you want to go back and see the reading passage, you now have to click a button like up here that says view the text. And then when you do that, all you see is the text. So this one is definitely using a little bit of your short-term memory. You can't really go side by side looking at the text. Now, there are a few probably things that would be, now that I've like taken the test a couple more times, I would focus on the fact that like there is something that's connecting these phrases. Like, okay, we're talking about this city, Teotihuacan, and what contributed to its success. And so we're looking at, it was a highly developed city. And I want to find, of these choices, A, B, C, D, E, F, I have 6. I need to find 3 of them that are general statements. I'll go look at the directions again one more time here. So we want 3 that are of a general nature. And there's at least, and there's 3 here that don't belong because maybe they express ideas that were not in the passage, or they express a minor idea, something small, something too specific, not a general thing. So I'm going to go back over here. The number and sophistication of architectural, administrative, commercial, and religious features indicate the existence of centralized planning and control. I'm not sure if that might be, I mean, that does refer to its high development. I'm going to hold on for A. Okay. Teotihuacan may have developed its own specific local region, and as a result, the cultural advances made possible the city's great prosperity. That doesn't seem to be one of the main points. That seems to be maybe small. And I don't even necessarily say, I don't think I remember them talking about creating their own religion. I'm going to probably say that's maybe wrong information. So I'm not going to use B. Several factors may account for Teotihuacan's extraordinary development: location, rich natural resources, irrigation potential, intelligent elite, misfortune of rival communities. I'll say yes, C is correct. That does seem to be little things that I remember from going through these other questions. Okay, and so I'm going to say C. And then as a result of its large number of religious shrines by the 1st century, it became the most influential. I don't think it's this large number of religious shrines, because they didn't quite know how many there were. That there could have been one or some. It didn't necessarily say that there were a large number of them. I'm probably not going to choose choice D. And then in many important areas, from the rich obsidian industry to religious tourism, Teotihuacan's success and prosperity typified the classic positive feedback cycle. Yes, I remember them mentioning that. So I'm going to say C and E. And then, although many immigrants settled in Teotihuacan between AD, the increasing threat discouraged further settlement. No, they didn't talk about threat or violence. They didn't talk about that. So I'm going to get rid of F. And so, yeah, we got rid of F and we got rid of D. And I got rid of B, that they were developing their own. So I'm going to go back and say A was also this choice here. So I'm going to say A, C, and E. So I've gotten rid of like 2 things that didn't sound right and another one that didn't sound right. So by eliminating 3 wrong choices, I'm also getting 3 correct choices. So this is kind of going back and forth with that for the figuring out which answers to choose from. Now, the other types of questions that you might have on here that we didn't look in this specific passage, there could be a sentence paraphrasing. So this is rewording a certain sentence, understanding how that sentence works. And I would look at that sentence and I would try to rephrase it in my head before looking at the answer choices, so I make sure I don't get necessarily confused with that wording. Okay, and what else is on here? So we've had the vocabulary questions, the sentence paraphrasing. Another type of question that you can have on here instead of for the summary could be a table. And usually that's where the topic might be about two opposing things. Let's say like herbivores versus carnivores. And then you have like 7 sentences, short sentences or characteristics, and you have to separate them into 2 tables. And you have to get all like 5, 3 on one side and 2 on the other. So that's another answer that you could have there, or type of question. So we've had this summary, we have the sentence insertion, we have the purpose, why the author says this, and I would recommend that you get used to those types of verbs that could be on there. We have according to, these like factual questions, and we have some reference question, what does this refer to? And the inference questions, so there's like some details kind of that are not clearly stated, they're kind of clues. And this exception and not question, and we have the vocabulary questions as well. But overall, you have 14 questions, and you're probably going to do about like a total of like 54 questions if you got like 3 passages. Or no, probably about like 42 if you got 3 passages, maybe about 54 or so if you got 4 passages. Okay, now I'm going to go back and stop sharing my screen for a second. I'm going to undo the screen share. Stop. Yeah, sorry. So here I am again. We're going to move on to some of your questions about the speaking section. A lot of you were mentioning the speaking section here. So that's just one example of like the reading section and some of the types of questions. And I'm trying to basically do a combination of eliminate wrong choices and start to spot what could be wrong details. Sometimes it's not always obvious. Sometimes it does cause me a little bit of some hesitation. I might like remember that on my note paper, I might write down like, okay, question number 22, let that sit for a little bit and keep going on to something else. In terms of your testing experience, the first time that I took this last year and that I got the 28 instead of the 30 this time, I would say I was also distracted. I was nervous. I was, it was early in the morning. There was also some background noise because at the center that I went to, they told me, okay, you're early. You've signed the waiver. They took my picture. I put my stuff away. I was ready to go. And I was like 20 minutes before the test started, or the official time. And they said, you're welcome to go in the room and start. So I said, okay. But what I didn't quite realize is that when you go in first, this means everybody else comes in after you. And when they sit you down, they say, okay, here they log in, they tell you, okay, this test is going to take 4 hours, double check that the headset works, and then, okay, type in the headset, and then they do a headset configuration, describe the city where you live, and it's going to start adjusting the volume. So when you have 20, 30 people after you walk in the room doing all of that, it does become a distraction. The second time I took the test, they had us come in groups. Like they had everybody give their materials or like their wallet and keys and all that stuff. And then they go into a separate room, sign the waiver, come back, wait in line. And then they had us going in one at a time to record ourselves saying basically the details of the waiver and then take the picture. And then when we left that one at a time, then they would go in and sit us down at the center. I recognize in this center, it was like 30 little cubicle spaces, but it wasn't complete cubicles. They were cardboard, which is basically almost like paper thin. It was really nothing to separate them. And on one of them, the cardboard started to fall off. so it wasn't all that well constructed. I could see that there were like five computer stations, and then another set, another set. So there's like 15, and then behind like another set. The first computer that they wanted to give me, I noticed that like the down arrow had a missing key, and I was like a little discouraged by that. I was like, okay, you're giving me a computer that's not fully working. And then it took a while, like that computer didn't load immediately. So I was just sitting there or standing there waiting for them to assign me a computer. And then they assigned me a different one. And then what was the next thing? Then there was like a standing fan that was behind me. It was like, that was also making some noise, some buzzing. The first time I took the test, there was construction work going on a couple floors above me. So I had this, and that was a distraction. I've had students tell me that the computer shut down in the middle of the test. So there can be all little distractions in the reading or listening section. So mentally, you need to be kind of prepared for anything on the day test, not just your English skills. There can be little distractions that can happen. Okay, and getting to some of your questions here about the speaking section. So let me go back over here. Okay. So let's get into some of the speaking questions that you guys might have here. The listening section, note-taking skills. I probably will recommend that we kind of go through on another occasion to have, the testing conditions can be very different from one place to another. And what else on here? So listening skills, I would say, like, I took lots and lots of notes. Obviously, I'm a native speaker, so I can almost do dictation if I want to. But when you compare the notes that you take to the questions that you usually have on the listening section, they're not as tricky. They're not as difficultly worded as in the reading section. The reading section really does test your vocabulary skills and kind of making sure that you understand how the information is connected. Listening skills, it's more, did you catch the information? Were you able to get some of those details? A few things that I notice is, let's say, if a teacher and a student are talking, there might be the first thing that they talk about of like, oh, by the way, your research paper. And you might start to think that is the main reason why that student is going to talk to the teacher. And then it gets to, and by the way, I wanted to talk about this. And that conversation really like develops about that second thing. So be sensitive to understanding like why are people talking to each other, especially like in a conversation setting. So you'll have the listening section, you'll have 6 audio, and that will be 2 conversations. One is between a teacher and a professor, a student and a teacher. Another one could be a student and somebody else on campus. So you have the student center, the library, administration, administrar, registration. So there could be different things on campus with a student, and it's usually some kind of a purpose. Why are they talking to each other? And then usually there's going to be something where they give some descriptions or details or characteristics of something. So that's usually a kind of question where they have like 4 choices and you have to pick from 2 of them. In some cases, there might be 5 choices and you have to pick 3. So be sensitive to how the question is worded to know how many choices you need to find there. I noticed when I took the test this time, there weren't quite as many of these like listen again and having the part of the conversation or part of the lecture. There weren't as many of those on this test. Although you might see several of them in examples like the volume 1, volume 2 of the official test or the official guide. And what else on here? There was, yeah, the listening section. I mean, it does test your note-taking skills, but it isn't necessarily dictation. If you get an idea, if you understand the idea, then kind of keep your ideas brief. You don't want to get distracted with your writing and trying to get complete sentences. You want to keep up with the main ideas and keep going. It's very, I would say it's very rare that you need very specific details in there. There's usually things that could remain in your short-term memory, but you don't have to do a complete third dictation in the listening section. Also be aware that they're going to get them in groups of 3s. So the conversation, lecture, the professor is talking about themselves, and a class discussion where the teacher might be interacting with the student, and a student might be answering questions or asking questions, and the teacher kind of responds. So you need to be able to understand the dynamic between a teacher and other students. And then you'll have that set of 3, and then you'll have another set of 3. And it might look a little confusing because it'll say you've come to the end of this section when you've just done 3 of them. But it just means, okay, you've done one set of 3 listening questions, and then you need to go to the next set of 3 listening questions. Be aware that on the difference between the reading section and the listening section, the reading at the end of all those passages, you can go back and review everything because the timer is for the complete reading section. Listening, as you listen and then do the questions, it's final as soon as you finish that answer. So you have to do a double click 2-step process to go from the question to question. So you have the first question on the first audio, and it'll, okay, next, and okay, and then you move to the next question. You can't go back to the previous questions. So make sure that you kind of think before you click next and okay. Double check your answers. It might look simple and with your notes, but just kind of give yourself that extra sense of, yeah, I think this is right. Don't rush it because you won't be able to go back on it. And then, so yeah, if you have a normal test, you'll have 3 reading passages and 6 audio. If you have what's called an experimental one, it's probably going to be 4 reading passages. They won't tell you which one is not being graded. You have to do your best on all of them. And then if you have 4 reading passages, you'll still have 6 audio files. If the opposite, you could have 3 reading passages and 9 audio files. So that'll be another set of conversation, lecture, and class discussion. And that would end up going for like an hour and a half if you had those listening passages there. Okay, so that's a few things on the listening section that I could there that I can give you in general terms, but don't try to do complete dictation. Try to understand what you're listening to and try to keep some of that stuff in your short-term memory as much as you can, and try to take your time before you click for the next question. Okay, let's get into the speaking section here because a lot of you have had questions on that. So there's been changes going on in the last year or so, and I would definitely recommend one of my friends' website, Michael Godin, who has the website TOEFL Resources.com. I'm going to put the link here. It's one here. And I usually go through with the students looking at on there, if you go into where it says the speaking section, and then you get to where it says like personal experience type 1. I'm going to put the link here as well. And there have been some updates to these questions. So if you have been preparing with some older materials for the exam, they might be a little outdated. So you might only be looking at examples of like personal experience of describe a time when you had to do something. There are new types of questions that are being added into like type 1, which could be like advice. What advice would you give to a friend who has this situation? And then why? So trying to give that, explaining your logic or your reasoning for a recommendation. So these could be as well. So these more types of, I'm not going to use type, but more styles of type 1 question. So this could be advice. Another one here could be picking from 3 things. So the best way to study for an exam, by yourself, with a small group of students, or with a teacher. Which one do you think is best and why? So you have to pick from 3. Another could be this kind of your opinion on something of what is the most important characteristic of a parent. So you kind of have to pick and give your opinion of that, and start to and explain why you think, okay, the most important characteristic of a parent is being a good listener, and then giving some anecdote or some reason to say that. And also, I've started to see with some students there an advantage and disadvantage on there. So what's one advantage and one disadvantage of some situation? And then you have to find that positive thing and also find this negative aspect on there. And you still have like personal experience. What else? Is there anything I'm missing here? Yeah, the experience, advice, opinion. Yeah, those are some of the things. I think on that link that I just showed you there, it doesn't actually say the one about the advantages, but that one is there as well. It's generally open. You generally have you have to identify this thing that you're going to probably talk about, give some details about it, but don't get stuck in the details. You also need to kind of step back a little bit with your putting it back in context. So relating to this question of let's say opinion about like being a good listener as the best characteristic of a parent. So I could get lost in the details about what is good listening, but I need to make sure I relate this back to parenting and how being a good listener as a parent is going to create a better communication with the parent, the child, and in some of those details. So if I get just stuck in this description of what good listening is, I'm not going to have a complete answer. There's usually 3 parts to this like type 1, type 2 questions, where like identify that thing that you have to talk about, describe it, but also give that why, or why did you choose that? How does that relate to the question? How does that relate to the topic? So it's very easy to get stuck in that description part and not move on to putting this kind of in a context and kind of clarifying your logic on there. The type 2 questions are basically here with like preference. Some prefer this, and some others prefer. And which do you prefer and why? Or it's probably something like, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? And it's probably going to be some kind of like a very extreme statement, where like all students must, or all students should, and then you have to pick a side. I do hear students debating this question in the middle of speaking about it, and then they don't really go through and explain themselves. So they get stuck on like, oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure what I would say. I'd say don't debate it. Don't comment on it. Start answering it. So you don't have enough time to go through that. Yeah. So here a question. Yeah. Do I give one reason and a long example, or 2 reasons, 2 examples? I don't necessarily have to give 2 reasons, 2 examples. I think you probably see that template for lots of websites where you have to have to 2 and have to have for that. What I have started to recommend to some students here is, because they end up getting the first idea and maybe 1 detail, and then they get stuck and they're gonna have to improvise. And then that second part of that improvising gets really awkward and they kind of give up. And what I've tried to experiment with those students where they have a hard time coming up with that second idea and that they're probably going to be improvising, I would recommend to them, like, do that brainstorming, come up with that first idea, dig a little deeper to get some detail in there of like why you're explaining that, and then hold on to the idea. Don't present it as the first one. So if you're going to improvise, maybe start improvising at the beginning of your answer. And then when you're looking at the timer and you realize like, okay, I'm about 30 seconds. I'm not quite sure if I did a good job improvising that first idea. Let's go back to that first idea I wrote down and make that my second idea. So that's one thing that I've started to experiment with a few students, so that like if they're going to be brainstorming, at least they can end their answer with a little bit more of a solid explanation. Because if they have start with a solid explanation and then they just panic and it just unravels, they're probably gonna be a little like stuck at the end. I'm not such a big fan of students saying like I believe this for 2 reasons, because if they get into a lot of details on the first one and then they suddenly see like, okay, I've got 10 seconds left and they haven't gotten to that second reason, then they feel a little more panicked that they've run out of time because they didn't talk about the second reason and they didn't fully develop it. So I would much prefer to see like maybe 1 idea and then it's developed. In the brainstorming, I would still suggest trying to give yourself maybe 3 or 4 ideas so that you could, kind of like a tennis player, have a couple choices before you get rid of the ones that don't work and just focus on the best ones that you have on there. In terms of developing your idea, let's say if you said like, let's say talking about like a vacation, like a travel experience that you enjoyed, and you just write down United States. It's too broad, it's too big. So you need to dig a little deeper in there. So, okay, travel experience in the United States, no, it's not specific enough. Go in a little bit more. Okay, United States, California. Okay, it's a little bit more specific. Try to go a little bit more. Okay, that time I went to Los Angeles. And what did I do in Los Angeles? Okay, I went to like 2, 3 places. I went to the beach, went to Universal Studios, and I went shopping at the mall or something. That's not the best example, but I've gone the way much narrower from United States, and then I'm stuck improvising and trying to talk about like everything that I could find there. But if I start to narrow in a little bit more, 2, 3 steps, yeah, Disneyland, Hollywood, thank you. Those are much better examples for California. Okay, so yeah, getting narrow, getting narrow into Disneyland, there's certain things you could talk about that experience, or getting Hollywood and then certain, like narrowing that much, it'll be a lot easier to describe Hollywood than to try to describe the entire United States. Yeah. And then why? And then also, why did you enjoy Disneyland? Okay, there was entertainment. It was enjoyable. I went with my kids. And so you can start listing some of the things in there. So narrowing on that one thing, it makes it easier to expand on it later. If you take something too broad, you're grasping or trying to grab at just random things and trying to get this all-inclusive answer, and it's really not easy to do that in 45 seconds, and also with a brainstorming with 15 seconds. But so make it easier on yourself, and also don't take something necessarily that's really difficult to explain. Another tip that I've seen with some other teachers with this is if this is your first time getting started with those speaking questions like type 1, type 2, which quite often end up being one of the difficult ones for students, because it's all on them. They have to come up with that explanation, the idea, and how to explain it, how to detail it, maybe a personal anecdote about it. And maybe in your native language, you don't really do this, don't have the structure on like different exams. So it might be a little awkward to be sharing this kind of information in an English setting. But go ahead and try to write down some of your ideas for this. So think about the question, write down what you could talk about without the timer, and get a feel for how much content you could put in, like a minute, maybe like 100 words. One thing you can also do is on a Google document, there is a thing called, it's called on here, if you go to tools, voice typing, and yeah, this on a Google document, you have voice typing. So try out Google Doc voice typing, and when you activate your microphone, it will start to take dictation of what you say, and that can give you a quick word count, and it can also check your pronunciation a little bit to see if that speech to text is working. And I would definitely recommend that you record yourself. One tool that I often share with students is this SpeakPipe voice recorder. You don't have to install anything. You don't have to create an account or download an app. You can just use this on your browser or on your cell phone, and just start recording yourself, and then go back and listen to yourself. Try to keep these recordings. For those of you who may just be discovering me and finding out about me, I also run a speaking challenge. At the top of this page on my website, you'll see something called 30-day speaking challenge. And that's open to everyone, not just like TOEFL students, but also people learning foreign languages. And that's kind of inspired by these type 1, type 2 speaking questions for TOEFL prep. I've also opened it up for people wanting to just develop their speaking skills in general. So getting into a habit of recording yourself a little bit each day does, it gets easier and less uncomfortable. And also, if you can listen to yourself and share this recording with a native speaker or with another student, you can swap these answers and you can kind of critique each other. Say, oh, that was good. I like that. That was not bad. And you can go back and do these same questions again and again and try to get better at them. Just because you did it once doesn't necessarily mean that that's it. Like you can go back and improve upon it. If you can get 3 reasons, that is good too. Just make sure that you're kind of keeping them linked. Don't get stuck in a listing mode, because a listing without really making sure that it links back to the question itself could just be like a shopping list where you're just listing and you're not necessarily explaining yourself. It's not necessarily like a radio competition where it's say like, okay, I'll give you $1,000 if you can list 20 things that you find in your fridge. I mean, it's not like that kind of an exercise where you're just listing without explaining. You do also need a little bit of this organization and explaining element with that. And then with getting into like the type 3, 4, 5, 6 ones, you do need to work on your note-taking skills a little bit, especially when you have the reading for the type 3, type 4. I would recommend that you get into that you can write and on the paper without looking at your hand, because you only have 45, 50 seconds to look at that. So you don't want to waste time going to the screen, going to the paper, and you might lose your spot in the text when you're doing that. So try to develop looking at like a news article and taking notes and seeing how much content you can get in there in a minute about that. And with your notes, let's say for type 3 with conversation, try to identify very quickly if it's the man or the woman, if they are agreeing or disagreeing, or how they are supporting that. There are a few changes that are going on with this type 3 where they might not completely disagree with it. They might agree that a policy change might need to happen, but they might not necessarily agree with the way that's being achieved. So it's important that you take those notes on that and present that in your answer, because if you're still using a template that you found, it might not necessarily be up to date with small changes that are taking place with the test. So they are trying to change the test, keep students on their toes, so yeah, be careful with your templates. I generally approach templates as a checklist. Maybe an introduction, start to identify the thing that you need to talk about, expand on it with how that relates to this prompt, and maybe provide a little bit of an anecdote of how that relates. I mean, that would be like type 1, type 2. But for 3, 4, 5, 6, there's really just more specific content that you need in there. Like 4 is usually a concept, usually a little bit of an anecdote from the professor to comment on that and expand on this idea. So get the main details in the reading of what that concept could be, and then look at with the professor how those anecdotes relate to this concept, and try not to necessarily combine everything in there. I tell a lot of students where, let's say like this water bottle, I should have had more water now. I can't get everything that's here in a cup, so I have to filter. I do have to select the key points in there. I can't just cram everything into those 60 seconds. I do need to select the key things and paraphrase them, because I have limited time on that. Okay. In question 3, you mentioned in the introduction the 2 reasons for the change. If I do see in the policy or the announcement that there's like either 2 motivations for that change or 2 desired outcomes for that change, if they mention that in the reading passage, do go ahead and kind of bring that up, that the university is going to renovate the library because the building is old, and they want to add a small coffee shop in there. So like those would be the 2 reasons, or something, or the like what they want to do. So it's an old building, and they also want to add a coffee shop. And then go into what comes up in the conversation. So yeah, if those look like important details, go ahead and mention them. Yeah, don't skip over them, because it does demonstrate that you got a clear understanding of that. And of course, they mention it in 6 exams. Okay, what is this comment about the? Of course, they mention it in 6 exams. Problem is I use only 2, but also fair. I get 3 reasons. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Oh, an example. Okay. Okay. And yeah, if you can expand your question a little bit more, that helps me kind of understand what you're referring to. Okay. And also recognize that on these like 3, 4, 5, 6, especially like 3 or 4, sorry, where you have a reading passage, it's going to disappear as soon as you those 50 seconds, 45 seconds are gone. So your notes are what you have of that reading passage. And you will want to kind of use some of that information. But oh, you mean, can we go through a whole set of speaking? Yeah. Yeah, there's a here. Yeah, okay. How you answer each question. Okay, I see what you mean here. Okay, so let's go on. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that would be beneficial for all you. Not instead of just talking about what you could put in there, and just see how I would react on this. Great. Okay, thank you for that suggestion. Okay. Let me take an example here from the TOEFL resources. Okay. So we'll look at the one, this, let's say a pure experience one here. So, okay, yeah, great. Thank you for that suggestion. So what is the most memorable experience you have had while on vacation? Why was this experience so memorable? Include details and examples to support your explanation. Don't have a pencil or paper here, but I'm going to probably talk about Paris, museum, and I don't have a timer. Why don't I have a timer? My cell phone just ran out of time there. Okay, I'm going to put a timer over here. Oh, online stopwatch. Yeah, okay. This one, online stopwatch. And I'm probably going to share my screen here. Just 1 second. And okay, stopwatch. And I'll put 45 seconds. I think you can see my screen. I think you should. Okay, and I'll say ready, go. Okay. No, why is that not? Okay, go. One of the most memorable experiences that I had on vacation was when I went to Paris for the first time. It was a wonderful experience because I got a chance to practice my French, and I saw some famous landmarks like the Eiffel Tower, and we visited the Louvre, which has a wonderful collection of art. For example, I really enjoyed seeing the Mona Lisa for the first time, and I'll never forget that. So for those reasons, those contributed to why I think my trip to Paris was one of the most memorable vacations that I've had. Okay, so that's 45 seconds there. Let's get another question here. And I'll go back over here. And I'll say, preparing for going to a university. Here. And then go over here. So it's facilities, cost, location. Okay. Facilities, cost, location. Okay, I'm going to do 45 seconds again. When I have to decide where to go for college, I think the most important part of that reflection would be the location of the university. My brother went to a university which was in a small town, and he got very bored because there was not very much to do on weekends. So I would much prefer to have a university in a big town where there's lots of activities and things that I can do in my free time or on the weekends, or that it's also easy to discover. Okay, kind of probably missed out on opportunity in like the last 5 seconds to add something more. But basically, I'm talking about the location and then maybe explaining like an anecdote, maybe not myself, but maybe my brother, and saying like, okay, he was bored, and that's why I would prefer maybe another place. I do remember on the test, I probably did say something a little incoherent on the last like 5 seconds. So yeah, as you're getting down to like last 5 seconds, if you have developed your answer and it's kind of finished, leave it. If you're going to say something like kind of awkward, it might not necessarily be the best situation there. Okay, I'm going to try to go through from memory like a type 3 question. Okay, let me go back over to the turn off my screen for a second. Stop sharing. And I'll go back over here and I'll share the details and say on here, say for this type 3, let's say near one will save time, other reason will save money. Okay. Also, if you would like, you're welcome to use that SpeakPipe voice recorder and make your own answer, and I can listen to it and I can give you some feedback on here. So that's open to many of you. If you want to do a short recording right now while we're here live, go answer one of these questions like type 1 or type 2, make a recording with SpeakPipe and paste a link to your audio recording here. I'll listen to it, I'll give you some feedback and see what you could do to improve. So yeah, with this SpeakPipe voice recorder. So, okay, and yeah, you can click on there, you can make a recording. Yeah, now, I mean, while we're live, might as well take advantage of, you're here, I'm here. You can go ahead and do that. On there, on the voice recorder, let me walk you through the voice recorder. Let me show you how that works, and then you can do that if you want to send me 1 or 2 recordings. Let me go back and, oops, here. Okay, yeah, let me show you how that works, and with the screen here. So here I'm at that SpeakPipe voice recorder. I'll click start recording. I'm going to do that in a second. I'll do a type 3 question that is about a student art display, and that they want to do this in the student center because there's a lot of students there, and it has natural lighting. But in the conversation, the female student disagrees because, well, if it's in the student center, there's too many students. Students are that's going to be distracting. And then with the natural lighting, it's going to be changing throughout the day. And art display should probably have standard, like stable lighting. Okay, so that's basically the details that are in there. I'm going to actually give an answer now in 60 seconds. In both the reading and the conversation between the 2 students, they're discussing a proposed plan to have a student art display in the student center. According to the student who proposed this idea, the student center would be a good place because there's lots of students who walk through there, and it has a lot of natural lighting. However, in the conversation, the woman disagrees with this proposed plan because she thinks that having too many students in that area will be a distraction, and that people who are viewing the art will not be able to concentrate or enjoy the experience. And she also comments on the fact that with natural lighting, the light will fluctuate and have different shades throughout the day, and that for this art display, it should have a stable indoor lighting. So those are 2 reasons why she disagrees with this proposed plan. I'm going to click Save on Server. I'll put my name, Jonathan, type 3. and I'll click save. And then I'm going to make sure I get the entire link here, because this thing might be a little incomplete. So I want to go all the way over here. I'm going to actually triple click it, copy it, and then I'm going to go back over into the text thing here, and I'm there. And if you want to click, you can go and listen to that audio file again, and that is what I just did there. So if you want to do the same thing, feel free to use that SpeakPipe voice recorder. You can send me an audio file right now, and I'll be happy to listen to this and comment on it. Okay, let me go back over to get a type 4 recording. So let's say in this one, type 4, it is about entertainment, merchandising, which this is kind of selling a derived product from a movie, or basing a TV show or movie on a toy or game. And then in this professor's anecdote, he talks about his favorite TV show as a kid, and he wanted to buy the toy when it came out. And then he has a daughter who has a favorite doll, and now she's excited about a new TV show being based on the doll. So those are some of the details that would be in this type 4. And I'm going to go through and use the quarter and go, okay, ready. And I'm going to clear this. I'm going to give myself, how do I clear this? Why can't I clear it? I'll put 60 seconds here. Okay. So in both the reading passage and the lecture, the discussion is about entertainment merchandising, which is defined as how derived products like a toy or a game can be sold based on a movie or a TV show, or the other way around, a TV show or movie could be based on a toy or an existing product. In the professor's lecture, he talks about how when he was a little boy, he had a favorite TV show, and he was real excited when there was an action figure based on this superhero, and all of his friends wanted to buy that action figure. And then he also mentioned how his daughter has a favorite toy, a doll, and now she's excited that there's going to be a TV show based on that doll. So those are two ways how movies and toys can be used to promote or sell one another. Okay, so that's 60 seconds there. And now getting into, let's say, a type 5. And this could be, let's say a student what could this be? This student has to move out of her dorm. There's a busted water pipe. She can go to a friend's apartment, or she can go to a small hotel. She has a tight budget, and it is the midterm period. So those are the conditions, let's say, for type 5. Go back over here. The student has a problem, which is that she has to move out of her apartment because there was a busted water pipe and it's going to take about 2 weeks to repair. So her friend suggests that she could either stay at another friend's house. However, that might not be the best option because she is studying for her midterm exams, and the apartment will be crowded with several other students, and it could be very noisy, which would not allow her to study. Even though she is on a tight budget, I think the second option of going to a small hotel would be a better choice, because she would have some private space and she could study and not get distracted while preparing for her midterm exams. So that's why I would recommend that she go to the hotel instead of going to her friend's apartment. Okay, so that would be, let's say, like a type 5 there, of making sure I introduce what this problem is and talk a little bit about what the 2 solutions could be. I think here I did probably talk about a little bit more the first solution, and then eventually in getting to the second choice when I was giving my opinion on there. But definitely want to make sure to introduce what the 2 solutions could be, and then start to compare and contrast them. Just so, like, why would I choose this option? Why is that a good one, and why is the other one a bad one? And how that relates to either her budget or maybe there. Thank you for sharing a link here. Unfortunately, I think you have the link to the recorder and not necessarily to your message. Make sure that it says /message/ and then like letters and numbers after that. So please double check your link. You may want to open it in a second tab. Double check that to make sure it works. And then I'm gonna move on to, like, let's say a type 6 question here, like a lecture. And let's say here, let's say type 6. And this could be plant defense mechanisms. Let's say in a botany class, and this could be about this could be a physical defense with the passion plant with short spiky leaves, and the other one could be the potato, like a chemical defense with the potato plant and a substance that is released. So that would be a type 6 here, and that would be like my notes from that lecture. And I'm going to go here for 60 seconds and say, in the professor's lecture, she talks about how plants can defend themselves. There are 2 ways that this could be done. First of all, there could be a physical defense. She gives an example of the passion plant, which has short, spiky leaves, and an insect cannot land on the leaf, so it cannot eat the plant. She gives an example of the potato plant, which uses a chemical defense mechanism. And when an insect starts to eat the plant, it releases a chemical, and there's a reaction in which the insect starts to feel full or insatiated and no longer wants to eat, and then stops eating the plant. So those are 2 ways that plants can defend themselves, either physically or with a chemical release. Okay, and that's the 60 seconds there. Okay, so that should give you an example. I might be going through some of those answers there. Okay, so if you're able to get a link to your recording there, I'll be happy to listen to that. But right now, the link that you provided here, it's just to the recorder itself. It's not actually to a message that I can listen to. Okay, and lastly, getting in here to, let's say, the writing section. One of my friends, another so link with the answer. You can see how my link with the SpeakPipe, it also included something that says MSG/ and then there are like little letters and numbers. That actually is the identification to that audio file. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe you can try this on another device or another browser. But I also, this video, when it becomes recorded, you can also try this on another browser and probably put a link to an audio file below this video, and I'll check back to see people's recordings. So just as an offer to everybody who's been watching here, you're still welcome even after this video to kind of provide a link to a recording. I'm sorry to hear that that wasn't working right now. Perhaps try this again afterwards. But so as I was saying here, another trainer who I know, and some of you probably may be familiar with her, is putting on writing classes. She's been doing this now. I think she's doing it like every 2 months or so. The link here. Where is the link? And sorry, just 1 second here. I thought I had the link, but it was. Where is this? Oh, here, I think. Okay, so her name, you may be familiar with her, is Sierra. Let me just get these other comments here. Okay, yeah, Sierra Yolem, and she's putting on these writing classes that you may want to check out here. And I'll post a link here. And she says that the group in March is currently full, but she's going to be offering this again in May. And you can visit her website on here, or Sierra Forrest, and there she has a sign-up link. So if you're interested, she's going to be putting on these writing classes. And I think she's had a lot of really good success with her students as well, preparing for the exam. And you can check that out for her. As I mentioned, also with the website, the TOEFL Resources from Michael Godin. He has a lot of, I really like using his template for the integrated essay. Let me just get that link for you as well. The integrated one. And I don't want to forget another TOEFL prep trainer who I'm familiar with. Her name is Kathy, and several of you are probably familiar with her on the House of TOEFL. And she has a really good book for the reading section. So let me just get this. Looking over here, it is an ebook through like Amazon Kindle. Let me just get the link here for you. So you can check this out, and it's a really useful book for the reading section. So you probably want to check that out. Called Mastering Reading Section TOEFL English ebook. So that's a good resource to look at. So for the writing, I would mention that for the integrated essay, you can get into a template to get the reading passage compared to lecture. I've seen also, like, for example, Cracking the TOEFL. I didn't really like that template because it made it sound like the reading passage was contradicting the lecture, where usually it's the other way around. It's usually the lecture that's commenting on the reading passage. Okay, and a question here. Any strategies, tips, and stuff to avoid on how to deal with questions 1 and 2 in the writing section? Okay, yeah. Some students end up with their templates kind of doing fluff or trying to pad, add words to to the word count. I'm not a big fan of that because it's kind of just phrases that might not necessarily apply well to that topic. I mean, I like the idea of a template where, or a sequence of how to present, how to develop an argument for the integrated essay. But by template, I don't necessarily mean like, for example, the speaking section or writing section of using exact phrases. I much prefer to look at template in terms of a checklist. Like if you were doing a recipe in cooking for the first time, maybe the first time you do need to measure like the flour or the salt or something, and because you need to have the exact measurements, maybe that first time. But once you go through this enough times and you get familiar with it, you don't have to follow the recipe exactly. It'll feel a little like robotic, or that you're not doing this naturally. So I feel like also following that rigidly, it's like having training wheels on a bicycle. At some point, those training wheels have to come off. And if you look at expert chefs, they don't necessarily follow a recipe like exactly 1 cup. They know more or less, okay, that's a cup. Yeah, that's enough. So they know what feels like, what feels right. So when you're writing your essays, definitely go ahead and like do this many times. I would also recommend checking out the website like Italki, where you can you can submit an article for 2 times a day for free. And let me just get this here, a link here. Just 1 second here. And I want to show you here, if I can, how this works. On here, it's just loading this website. If I can show you here, but 2 times a day on Italki, you could submit an essay, like a type 1 or like an integrated or independent, and the maximum number of characters is like 2,500. So that's enough for like a 400, 500 word essay for that. And let me go back. Sorry, I just need to load this again. It's just taking a second to load the website. But for some reason there's an issue. It's giving me like a gateway timeout link there. But anyway, on Italki, I'll just put the link here, italki.com. The notebook entries, if you go into the community tab, and then you look for notebook entries, so you can do this 2 times a day for free. You can submit a text with maximum 2,500 characters, and that is basically about 400, 500. Okay, I see there's a message now. Thank you. And you can get feedback on this essay, so you can get more native speakers involved or teachers involved. Okay, let's go listen to this audio file. Thank you for trying that again. Okay, let me see if I can open that here. See if you can listen to that, hear that in my microphone. Let's see if I can open that here. Listen to that, hear that in my microphone. Okay, that's let me go back over here. Unfortunately, that's like a 3-second audio file. It looks like that didn't completely go. I'm sorry to hear that. It doesn't look like it was a complete recording. So could you try one more time, please? Sorry to hear that. And somebody else here, hello, congratulations on your scores. Okay, my question, the word limit, an issue for a high score. Secondly, what was your word count? Yeah. So yeah, with word count, word limit, it's not necessarily just add as many words as possible. You do also need to consider how you're developing your ideas and being clear with them, and also trying to be concise with them. Don't just add lots of words and not be clear. So and with the timing, I would say it's important to understand how many words are you able to do in that like 15 minutes, and be kind of realistic with that. You can also work on like your typing speed. And when they say like 150 to 225 and saying like that's an average essay, well, that's also like an average grade. So if you're aiming for like about a 3 out of 5 points, like on the raw score, if you're aiming for like about a 3 out of 5, then yeah, probably about like 200 words probably get you 3. But if you're aiming for like above that, like maybe like 300 words, personally, I think I did about like 470 words on the first time, and the second time like I did the test, I did about 470 for the integrated essay. But again, I have the unfair advantage of being a native speaker, being a fast typer, and kind of with my notes, I think they were a little bit easier. And I think also with the integrated essay, it tends to be a little bit more straightforward because you know what the point being made in the reading passage is, and then you can see how the lecture is contradicting that. So you can use some template phrases to show the structure between how the reading passage sets up an idea, but then how the lecture contradicts it. So I like the template that I put the link there from Michael's integrated writing template there from TOEFL Resources, so you can check that out. For the independent essay, I think the first time I did it, I did about like 570 words. Just kept typing. It also depends on the topic. Sometimes they can be more difficult, and you struggle for brainstorming like a good idea and examples that go with it to clarify what you're trying to say with that point. But there might be something that's a little bit easier, a little bit more straightforward, and you can just really start typing away. Be aware of your typical mistakes. So I wouldn't say type 400 words, type 500 words, that's going to be the solution for everything. You also need to be aware, like, the more words you put out there, there is a risk that you have more mistakes. So you may want to write in the 300, 400 word range for integrated. Aim for about 300 words, I think. That'll probably get you like a 4-paragraph essay, like introduction and then the 3 body paragraphs. You don't necessarily need to have a conclusion in there, because I would probably add like a little concluding statement at the bottom of each body paragraph to show how that is casting doubt on the points being made in the reading passage. So you don't have to necessarily collect all of those little concluding statements in a final conclusion, but I think I did, because I still had time, I think I did use a concluding statement, but not, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for everybody. And get a sense of your typical mistakes, which could be So typical. Fortunately, let me try this audio file again. It looks like it's the same audio file link. I'm sorry. I don't see that's changed. So okay. Yeah, unfortunately, that's like a 3-second audio file there. So typical mistakes, let me just write this here. So typical mistakes I see in the proofreading phase would be subject-verb agreement. So these would be things like you have a singular subject, but then you have like a plural verb. So you need to be careful with, you have like it, and then like it are. I mean, that's not a typical example, but it would be something like the student play, the student think. So here you have, okay, singular plus plural verb. So I have to be careful of those kinds of things. Also with demonstratives, so like this is, but it's referring to and plus a plural subject. So be careful with that or something. Or you're in one sentence, you have something singular, and then you follow it up with these are. So just be consistent. Make sure that you're double checking if your things are singular or plural. Also, be careful when you're looking at something like the importance of these books. Well, what is the next thing? Is it is or are? What do you think? The importance of these books. Should that be the importance of these books are, or should that be the importance of these books is? That can be a little tricky one, but realize the subject of that group of words, your subject is the importance. So it's very common, students will get distracted by using the of these books, and they look at the S on books, but the word that you're actually talking about, it's importance. Because when you go back in the next sentence, you'll talk about that as an it. The importance of these books is. So you can find those in examples like grammar books and things like that. What are some other typical things? Word form. Be aware of spelling differences. Differences for adverb versus adjective. So quite often, just like I said here, you might have a subject that is singular and then a verb that's plural. Be careful as well when you have a verb plus an adverb. So this could be something like drive carefully. This is correct. But what I might end up seeing from a student is drive careful. And that would be a mistake because this is a verb plus adjective. In a similar way, you don't want an adverb plus a noun. So like nouns, like adjectives plus nouns. So be careful with that. So an example with this could be just careful students. I'm not thinking of really creative examples right now, but I'd say careful students. This is correct. That's correct. But if I had carefully students, that would be incorrect. Careful students, that's correct. But carefully students, this is a mistake because this would be an adverb plus a noun. If you have little doubts on this, I have a short little PDF. Google. Let me just go in and get this on my Google Drive and share this with you. No. No, sorry. Unfortunately, I don't have it in my Google Drive, but what you could do here is below the video down and below the chat box here, it says like get your copy of the Successful TOEFL Strategies Guide. You can sign up for there. You can send your email there, and then I can send if you mention to this. Yeah, I can also put this with YouTube. So you can sign up and get that little grammar guide, a grammar review for that. Yeah, I'll set up a little something on the YouTube link after this video is finished. I'll put a link so you can get that grammar guide, and that'll help you with things like nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, transitive and intransitive verbs, transitive and intransitive. And that's it. That's an important detail to know in the grammar, because this also relates to active and passive verbs. So like a transitive verb could be a verb that has an object, like eat a sandwich. But a plant grows. There is no object, so that is intransitive. And when you want to make that passive, you could say like my sandwich was taken with the verb take or something. But like, I don't know, the birds fly, there's no object, so birds are flown. That doesn't make sense, because it's like nobody is causing a bird to fly. They just fly. So in some of the sentences, that could be an issue with that. And can you give us a sample response or video on the second task of the reading section? Second task. What is the second task of the reading section? Sorry. You mean a second passage? A second reading passage? Or is there a specific question on there? But yeah, if you guys have more questions, I mean, I'm very happy that you've been here for the last 2 hours or so. But I'm also going to be putting together like a little library of like these little videos and questions, kind of like what you have on other websites for, let's say, Magoosh or Noteful. I want to start creating my own and start interacting with more students for that. So why don't you go ahead and sign up for this, the strategies guide. I'm going to be updating that, but if you sign up there, I'm going to be setting up like a new, I'm going to tell more people who sign up for that guide about this library of like making videos and review for writing or review for speaking. I want to start creating that into like a little small private community there. I'll keep doing things on YouTube, but I would like to also have a more hands-on experience with students who are preparing for the exam. And okay, yes, for the writing section, yeah. So yeah, a few weeks ago, I did something on Instagram, and I put a writing passage. Unfortunately, on Instagram, the video disappeared because it was 24 hours, and then it was gone. I didn't download it, and I didn't get a chance to upload it to YouTube because it was just gone. but a sample of like my writing for the second writing. Sorry, that's redundant, but let me get here. So yeah, I did this as a live writing. I'm gonna put this here. Let me just get you the link here. You can see this. Okay. So let me just get that. So on here, yeah. So this is a sample of my own essay for like the independent essay on there. It's a little bit more of a difficult topic there. It is about the students learning, what is it? Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It is more important for students to understand ideas and concepts than it is for them to learn facts. Use specific reasons and examples to support your answer. So I was going through a little bit of a brainstorming here and trying to figure out what would I probably be putting in the intro, probably putting in the body paragraph, and the second, and in the conclusion. And then I started to go into the actual essay, which you can see on the second page. And I think the word count on there, and I did do this in 25 minutes, and it had 535 words. And that also included my brainstorming, which was like half of that first page. So this is ways that you can see my writing style, the kinds of things that I would put in there. Okay, so that's an example. Hopefully that you can find that helpful and useful. And okay, well, yeah, we've gone through one reading passage. I've given you a few tips on the listening section. I tried to get an example here for the speaking. Unfortunately, that didn't quite work. And I've given you here like a template for one of the integrated, and you've seen how I would go through the speaking section, like a whole set of 6 answers there. And here's a sample of one of my independent writings. So hopefully this is going to help you get an idea of me, of my teaching style, of what I probably put into these answers on the speaking, on the writing. If you would like to work with me independently, definitely at the top of this page, there's the lessons and prices link to check that out. And I'm also in the process of setting up group lessons. So if you're interested in joining for group lessons, send me an email. So here is email, jonathan@international.com. Send me an email. Let me know if you would like to join in group classes. This would mainly be for like the speaking and writing section. Those are usually where students want more feedback. And I'm trying to keep this on like a shorter or smaller group, maybe about like 5 people around that. So it doesn't get too much, because I know students either they prefer like an independent, get specific feedback on their needs, but I also recognize that sometimes working as a group can be beneficial, where you can share advice with other students, hear about their experience, and share tips and advice, and also compare your speaking to other students, or compare your writing to the quality of other students. So if you are interested in taking part in these group lessons, and send me an email and let me know about what your needs are. If you've taken the test before, what your previous results were, which sections of like speaking and writing you're struggling with the most, like task 1 or 2, or if it's integrated, or if you need more help on the integrated essay or the independent essay. And I'm going to start like with a couple of these people, get an idea of what you need, what you would need in a group lesson, and then start to put that together. So definitely that would be less expensive than the individual lessons, which you could see on there. And depending on how many people are interested in joining as a group lesson, I'll see for that. But send me an email and we can start formalizing the details on how that'll work. And it really, I want it to be kind of what you need out of it. So that depends on who is interested in that. And as I mentioned, I want to start developing this like library of videos and tips and advice. YouTube can be a little messy with the playlists, and I can't quite do everything I want to do, where I might have like a text area and a video and a blog post. I think it's easier either on my website or in a like in a teachable course. So that would probably be in a more like not necessarily on a YouTube environment. So I want to start creating a library as well and see what are people's main questions, where are they struggling the most. So I'll be taking questions from students and adding that into a small library, and probably making that like kind of like a monthly access to that. And then with that access, there would also be the possibility to get like feedback on speaking and writing. So okay, let's see if I can open this audio file that was here. From Maha, okay.
Personally, I think it's better for me to select the university that's near to my home, because that would be helpful for me to save a lot of time. If I enter the university that is close to my home, I'll be able to save a lot of time to do a lot of works and tasks, and maybe I got higher marks because of this issue. So that would be really helpful for me to live and to study in a near place to my home. Besides, if I'm living near to my home, I'll not be in a bad need to take any transportation methods or to pay for a fuel or for a gas. And that's why I prefer to live near to the campus.
Okay. Hopefully you've been able to hear that. Yeah, could you mention if you were able to hear that file as I played it? That'd be helpful to know. So yeah, one thing that I might notice here is near versus close to. So I wouldn't use near to, I would say near. You talked about the save time. Yeah, okay, yes, you were able to hear that. So you talked about save time twice. So I might rephrase that the second time. So maybe not say necessarily like save time, but that would take less time, or not be as time intensive. So try maybe like a rephrase negative, if that's one way. So like save time, or like not waste time, or not take as much, or take me as, yeah, thank you, or not take as much time. So try to find a rephrasing that allows you to not repeat that exact wording. I like how you're using something like the if structures. That does help show your logic and rationale for that decision. And in terms of your intonation patterns, I would work on that a little bit more, because it's like I could save time, but it's almost in between like asking a question, but not necessarily like continuing a phrase. So that could get a little bit distracting, but I would probably have to listen to this at least 1 or 2 more times and see how I could give you some feedback on your intonation patterns. What else would I say here? But I like how you're adding and developing this and explaining what you think. So that does make sense. I can follow your logic. But I would also recommend working on your like intonation patterns for presenting this. Okay. So yeah, this is about what I mentioned there of like if those of you are interested in group lessons, you can send me an email and I'll start putting this together. And also for a like a standalone library, that would probably be separate, slightly separate from the group lessons. So I would say I would set up a library where people can have access to the video and exercises, and probably I can give some feedback. And on top of that, people who can have access to the library, I would also be doing like group lessons and saying that the group lessons also go and check out content in the library, and then we'll talk in the lesson. So the library could be these resources, little videos, little exercises, and then in the lesson we could, as a group lesson, go through that and practice those things and get more feedback. And I think I would be doing access to the library on like a monthly basis. And these group lessons, there would be a cost per lesson itself. And then that lesson video would go into the library. The replay would be part of the library. And if you wanted to sign up for more than one group lesson, there would be a discount on there. But if you just wanted to do one group lesson, then that would be at a certain cost as well. But this would be a different rate than what you see for the individual lessons for that. So send me an email and I will be happy to send out more details and see who is interested, what your specific needs are, and how I can start producing more video content and exercises in a library to help you with that. So yeah, we've gone for like 2.5 hours here. I still see a lot of you still joining here. So thank you for your enthusiasm. Thank you for your questions. And if there's something I didn't get a chance to answer, some of the questions may have been a little not so clear or vague, but yeah, send me an email. I'll be happy to reply to you and give you some help. And your questions will also help me know what you need more advice on or resources for. Okay. But thank you all for these congratulation messages and enthusiasm to find out a little bit more about me and my teaching style and the advice that I can give you for preparing. And also, if you like this this style of like a group lesson, feel free to let me know and I will organize more things. Probably definitely not as long. This is definitely a long one to share as much as I could, but I will probably like focus on 1 or 2 something specific on there. But thank you for your time, and best of luck for your exam. Bye for now.